Good afternoon. You have me?
Gotcha.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you spending a few minutes. Congratulations on having two cars from Joe Gibbs Racing headed to the championship for this weekend in Phoenix. Before we poll for questions and start our Q&A session, tell us a little bit from your position on how you guys will approach this week in the shop.
Well, I mean, this week is kind of pretty much over actually already. I mean, the haulers leave tomorrow. So, I mean, most of the preparation has been going on for weeks now. And, but just hoping to at least get one car in the Final Four. So we've been preparing for, probably, 5-6 weeks.
All right. Well, we're now going to go to questions. We'll work to get as many questions as we can in the time that we have. And to kick us off, we're going to go to Bob Pockris. Go ahead, Bob, with your question.
Yeah, Wally, obviously Martin won this race in the spring. So what would you say, are the cars fairly similar to what you brought in the spring, or have things even developed this year that they're not that similar?
Yeah, I mean, you know how the sport works, Bob. I mean, you're always working to get better, and to say the cars are the same, is not true. And just we've learned things, and there's been other rule updates. We've had to make salt changes and things like that. So I mean, they're never the exact same.
Do you think having one there in the spring gives you an advantage at all?
Well, I don't know if necessarily an advantage. I think that we do have some good notes, and we do feel good about it. I feel like, we made a good point to do a lot of work after that first race and prepare for some things for the fall to try to, to be prepared. So I don't think, I feel good about it, but I felt good about this race last year heading into it, and we didn't fare out too well.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next question is going to come from Jordan Bianchi. Go ahead, Jordan.
Well, I appreciate the time. Joe Gibbs Racing has had multiple cars in the Final Four, many years now. I think this is the third time, I believe. You're going against Hendrick Motorsports. This is the first time they've had multiple cars in this round. Does that give you guys any advantage on how to manage this with two cars competing for the championship at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the experience is always good, right? I do. Someone told me today, like, JGR is the only team to actually make it to the Final Four, like every year or something like that. So that's, that's pretty cool to hear. But I think that, every year we go through this process, we learn a little bit. And, in some ways having multiple cars is good, but in some ways it's bad, right? Because, you only have so many resources, and you can only put those to, so much use. So if you had 4 cars on there, then you're gonna dilute your resources. So it's got its pluses and minuses.
And the other question I have is about pit crews. With 18 not making it to this round, do you anticipate any changes with the pit crews or anything? Taking somebody off that team and then moving it to one of the Final Four teams?
No, I don't anticipate any changes for this weekend. Nope.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, our next question is going to come from Jenna Fryer. Go ahead, Jenna.
Thanks, and thanks, Wally, for the time. Well, hi. I've got 2 questions, and they're specific to Denny. I guess I'll ask him one at a time. He's been in this position before, both in this format and then in 2010 in a different format. Why do you think that he just can't get that next level?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of circumstances that lead up to winning a championship, right? And he's been in the position a bunch of times, and like you said, and I think it's just everything just has to click on that day. And I think it's there's things that are up to him, there are things up to the team, the pit crew. I mean, there's so many variables, and I think you just have to have that day for it to all work out. So I don't necessarily think it's a Denny thing. I think it's a team thing.
So how can the team what can the team do to be all around come Sunday?
I mean, the big number one, learn from your mistakes, right? Like, we've tried to evaluate all the mistakes we've made in the past and, try not to repeat those. That's step one. And then, everyone just work as hard as they can and try to put the best foot forward. I think that, I think we're prepared. They're still working on the cars a little bit now, I think, but I think we'll be ready this weekend for sure.
And then my second question is he's a team owner now. Has that changed anything as it applies to Denny as a Joe Gibbs Racing driver, either good or bad? I'm not saying like, oh, he's been distracted. Like maybe he brings a different perspective now to the table.
I think that it's been, if anything, I think it's been a positive this year. I think that he is, he gets to see both sides. When you're just a driver, you just kind of know, what you're dealing with that week and what you have against you. And when you're a team owner, I think he realizes the amount of work and effort, and not that you don't necessarily appreciate your team, but I think he realizes like, these guys they're after it, they're working all the time. And I think that, he stepped it up as well. And he's like, they're going to put that much effort in. I'm going to as well. And I think that it's really shown on the track. He, he's been really consistent and really fast every week. So I think it's been good.
Great. Thanks, Wally. Have a good week.
You too. Thanks.
All right. Our next question is going to come from Kelly Crandall. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you. Hey, Wally, I have two for you. The first is going to Phoenix. It's a 750 horsepower track. And last year, Denny's made the comments that he felt like they kind of knew they were going to be up. It was a tall task with that package. You guys were better at 550 last year, where this year he said it's reversed. So do you guys feel much more confident now that the 750 package, you'll have something to contend at Phoenix?
Yeah, definitely. I think to your, like he said, I think we got beat so bad at Phoenix last year. We put all our focus on that for this year. And as a result, we're not as good on the 550. So this goes to show you how competitive this is. And, if you don't work on one aspect of, your racing game, you're going to fall behind. And, I think that luckily, we were able to get 2 cars in. So I think that extra effort hopefully will pay off this weekend.
And then I was just curious, when you think about Joe Gibbs Racing versus Hendrick Motorsports, how do you handicap it? What's the strength of you guys? What's the strength of Hendrick? And what's the flip side of that? What's the weaknesses, if there are any?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. Usually a lot of times I feel like, JGR might be the favorite going into a championship race. And I think, it's, we're definitely the underdogs. We have to beat the guy that, Kyle Larson's won so many races and been so dominant this year. And then you have Chase, it's the reigning champion at this track. And so like, we're definitely the underdogs. So I think that, from our perspective, I think that, to answer your question, I guess, we just don't have the raw speed they've had this year. And, to be honest, and, we're trying to figure that out. And, they've just beaten us just faster everywhere. So I think that, for us, we're going to have to be able to do our best job and run a very clean race, have good pit stops, execute well. And, hopefully we can run with them.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question is going to come from Dustin Long. Go ahead, Dustin.
Thank you. Hey, Wally, you referenced the focus on the 750 tracks this year after last season. I'm curious, was that easier to do for this year because of the parts freeze and the last year of the car, that while, as you stated earlier, you're learning about the cars as the year progresses, there's probably maybe not as big of a jump? Did that allow you guys to be able to focus more on the 750 and maybe not lose as much as maybe what you would have lost in a typical year on the 550s?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement to make. But at the same time, there's, even with the rule freeze and things like that, you're always trying to find every little advantage. So it might be, a setup or, a little gain in the wind tunnel or whatever it may be. So I think that certainly, you're not making radical changes, but I think that as the field closes up and everybody's so close, it just takes just a little bit to gain, to get that edge.
And also, what have been the challenges this year in maximizing the car and going for a championship with multiple vehicles, but also preparing for the next gen? I mean, obviously I know there's a lot of different people at Joe Gibbs Racing, so I'm sure you're probably able to break it up, but in other years, those might be people who be working on other projects. So what's kind of been the challenge in in juggling this year's championship run with getting ready for next year's next gen car?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And, we talk about that a lot because, you have your long-term objectives and your short-term. And I've kind of always, in my position, I've always worked with the race teams, and we've kind of just focused on the week-to-week stuff, the next race, or the next race is 3 weeks out. And, fortunately, we have a great engineering staff and, our production staff, that they're kind of more focused on the long term. So, I think you do have to split up those resources and, try to, it's a balance game, right? Because, you don't want to put all effort into this and then, we'll really struggle with the new car. But I think that, I think we're kind of mixed. I think we might be a little behind on, our work with the new car, but hopefully we can win the championship and then catch up.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, our next question is going to come from Lee Spencer. Go ahead, Lee.
Thank you. Thanks, Wally, for joining us. Appreciate your time, man. I know you're busy.
No problem.
Just kind of curious, you were talking about comparing the drivers, and Hendrick has everything going for them right now, and they've got two really young drivers. But on the other side of that, would you put up the veteran experience against the young guns?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question as well. I think that I feel like if we weren't going to have practice and everything else this weekend, I think, maybe it might give us a little bit of an edge. But I think that, with the practice session and qualifying, I think it's going to be kind of back to the, I think that everyone's going to get their fair chance to kind of work their cars out and, get the setup the way they want it. So I don't really see, I think it's going to be pretty fair that way. I'd say even.
Sorry, I thought you were finished. You think there's going to be any team orders going on with the other, the two other drivers for each of the organizations, or a Chevy situation ganging up against the Toyotas when it all comes down to the big prize on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think so. I think that, that's something that, I think we've pretty much stayed away from. I know, NASCAR in the past has, talked to us about that, and, it's not a speedway race, and it's just, I think that typically what you see in this race is, the fastest cars are at the front, and they just kind of migrate there. It's one of those tracks where the cream will rise to the top, and I don't see that being any kind of issue.
And are you spread a little more thin since Hendrick doesn't really have to worry about the Xfinity Championship, and you guys do? Because you've run for the owners, and Daniel Hemrick is running for the title.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, we have enough staffing that it's a separate issue. And I think that, there's no negatives to that. And in some ways it's a positive because we'll learn from their race and be able to, debrief with those guys. So I think it's, if anything, it probably helps us a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
All right, Wally, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And good luck this weekend in Phoenix.
Thanks.